Good afternoon everybody and a very warm welcome to Milton Holland Districts, and my name's Susanna and I live with chains, and in this video we'll be looking at the HST project. I don't know how many parts this is going to be or how long it's going to take, but basically what I'm trying to do is essentially convert this HST into something a bit more like this HST. So basically is to have the network rail version of the non-buffered HSTs, and that is class 43062, and if I have an image I will show you up there. And there are various things I need to do. I bought this as a pretty much unloved, by the looks of things, HST off of eBay relatively cheaply. However, the seller has failed to disclose a certain number of things. Thankfully, because this is a project HST, then all the kind of all the imperfections can be sort of masked away, and hopefully we'll turn this kind of ugly duckling into a beautiful swan and have it riding the rails again, looking resplendent in the network rail livery. And that is actually the plan for it. And along with it, I do have some transfers from Railtech, which arrived today. And so all the transfers that I need are now here. So when I'm ready to do it, then this thing will be, like I said, I'll repaint it and get it all sorted out. This one is one of my earlier projects. Now I'm going to swap out the chassis on this one because they're both Limas, and basically the chassis on this one is better than the one on this one, and this one's been put on the wrong way round, and this one's actually got a little bit missing on the back. So in order, and because this particular one, the body is actually going to be used as a static item, then it doesn't need to be, if there's bits missing, it doesn't matter because it's been restored. So then obviously this part's missing, or maybe there's parts coming off of this to salvage maybe another HST or something. So because it's a static one, it doesn't matter whether or not this has got bits missing or not. So like I said, I've got this flying banana one, and as you can see, it's got the network rail logo, it's got the little running number on the side and improving your railway. It's actually got a nameplate, which 43062 also has a nameplate, which I've also ordered. So the nameplate's there. So I'll be able to sort of recreate my own 43062, because trying to get hold of these items are not very easy to come by, and if they are, they're quite expensive. So I don't mind making my own. I'm no stranger to creating my own rolling stock. I've actually painted up some Mark II network rail coaches before from other coaches, so I have done it before. It's nothing that particularly scares me. So I'm just going to get this done, and we'll see how we get on with it. So one of the things I want to do is just dismantle this. So like I said, it's got a crack on the outside, but I super glued it right on the inside, so it's now secured now. And what I want to do is take away the glazing off of it. So, and then I can wash that out in soap, and hopefully it will all come out. Now I'm not sure about how this is going to come out because I think there's some glue inside it, so we'll see how that goes. So what I've done is I've swapped a mixture of parts to get exactly what I want out of this. It turns out that this older one, I forgot, didn't have the cab detail on it, and also the back bogey and everything was slightly different. So I've created out of two chassis, I've created one to make one complete really good one. So this will run nicely on the layout, and it's all complete with nothing missing on it. So all the air pipes, it just simply clicked in, so it was just easier just to do it like this. So I'm going to just pop that one onto that one, test fit it and see how that goes. Unfortunately, I won't be able to take the glazing out of this. I wanted to take the glazing out, but I think it's glued in and I don't really want to break it. So I'll have to carefully mask it when it comes to painting. But we're just going to quickly see how this sort of fits in. It should fit in nicely because it's exactly the same. And this should run lovely once it's all completed. So the glazing's off here, the main glazing, so I'll get that cleaned up in the wash. And also we'll have a look at this as well to see what we can do with this. The glazing isn't particularly clear. It's kind of got some, it's like either dirty or got some marks on it. So I'm going to try and clean it up as best I can, but essentially it will do a job. Like I said, it is a local project. I knew I did have other HSTs, Lima ones knocking about that I can sort of scavenge parts for me. Like I said, this one is a static model. This one isn't going to be running anywhere. So it will just be parked up in the siding. So as you can see, or maybe not, this is 400 grit sandpaper, and I've just taken it to the model and basically given it a good old sand down all the way around and rub down. And as you can probably tell, there's the crack. It's quite prominent there, but that's fine because you won't really notice it. Well, if you do, I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to give it a good old spray and see. I mean, it's going to go on the bottom anyway, so you're not really going to notice it once it's all sprayed up. But it's all nice and smooth. It's ready to be painted, but I can't actually paint it just yet. And the reason for that is because I need to show you some vital differences between a regular HST like this and the new measurement one, which I'm going to show you. Now, originally 43062 used to look like that, and that was like with the blue lines and the network new measurement train on the bottom. And I think Hornby actually did this as the original train pack, but that's not what I'm going for. They then sort of revised it to something a bit more like this, which is just a plain yellow with the nameplates. But again, that looks plain and simple, nothing too dramatic or too difficult. But what I'm going for is, let me see if I get a better picture, to be honest. Because sometimes you can get a clearer picture. Let me see if that one's better. It's not exactly a clear picture of it. Let's try it. Bear with me a second. This is what I'm going for, this one here. That's the kind of look I'm going for. With the improving your railway and network rail signage, that's what I'm going for. But as you can see, the few differences are on the front, you've got this scanner on the front. I think that's a camera. And there's also a light on the top. So I'm going to have to sort of add that and model that in as well, which is what I will do. So this is going to be sort of like my reference photo, as it were, to sort of work towards. To get, as you can see, it doesn't have no camera and it doesn't have a little light on the top. So these are all little features that I'm going to do and add. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to take my pin vise, my pin drill, and I'm going to drill a hole right smack bang in the middle. I've done this twice before with the 73s, so I've done it before, so it's nothing new. So what I've done is I've now drilled a hole, I don't know if you can see it, right along the top there, right in the middle, smack bang. And all I did is just take your pin drill and just drill it straight in, and it goes straight into the hole. Just take your time and it'll be fine. Then what you do is you just add a track fixing pin and super glue it. And that is enough to give the impression that it's got a headlight on the top. So once it's glued in and secured, you can just basically then spray it up and glue it up and just paint it in, and it'll just look like you've got a headlight on the top. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not going to have this lit or anything like that, but this is just to create the look that it is new measurement train, and by adding all these little bits and pieces. And all it is creating a simple hole with a pin drill at the top, in the middle, and a track fixing pin, glue that into place, and then when you spray it up, you can then add the kind of touch up to it. So a short time later, I've gone through my spares box to see what I can find, and I had this I-beam, some spare I-beam here, and some spare plastic strip. So I can't tell you what the codes are for these, because these are just spare offcuts that I've had. And what I've done is I've put a triangular edge on the edge of it and cut it down, and then I've sort of encased it in this plastic strip here, and I've created like a little box type thing, so it all looks a bit kind of, but as you can see, it kind of gives it that kind of profile for the camera to go up the front. And then you've got the little light cluster that goes on the top there, that's already secured, so that kind of gives the illusion of what I was going for, which is the camera on the front there and the light cluster on the top there. So we're gonna sort of like, it's now on, it's glued, and it's just going off. So then it becomes a case of masking before I do a bit of priming and seeing. As you can see, I've got the lenses there. I just test fitted the lenses to make sure that the box wasn't going to get in the way of me refitting the lenses. So then now that's in, that's fine. I can now take the lenses back out, and then basically once I've masked up the windows, I can then give it a coat of primer, and then also then I can start painting up the rest of it as well. So as you can see in this view, I've now primed it, and I've also done a little bit of filler work to it. It's particularly where the crack is at the front. I don't know if it will show up, hopefully it will probably show up, but you'll probably see it, there is a line down the front there. So I've done some filler work on that. I've also done some filler work on the box at the front. And you can also see where I've put the track fixing pin. So it's all ready to go for the top coat. And it's just basically bringing this old Lima body shell, HST body shell, to life, and giving it a new purpose. But hopefully it will come out really, really nice. And like I said in the beginning, turn the ugly duckling into a beautiful swan, really, because it really, really was very scratched. It's not going to come out perfectly because the glazing isn't perfect, and there's nothing much I can really do about that. And I don't really want to sort of go through just ruin what I have. So I'm just doing the best with what I have. But this is going to be a trailing HST anyway, and I think it's come out really, really lovely, to be honest. Now, what I will do, for those of you that are interested, I'll show you the paints that I've been using now, or that I'm going to use. Now, what I will say is that these are paints left over from previous projects. So 2 of them are not current. You've got this one, which is the Wix spray, all-purpose spray primer, and this is a white one. This is readily available. But the black and the yellow are from Wilko's before they went bust, and I've still got some of it knocking around, so I'm still using that. I mean, this one's on its last legs, it hasn't got very much in it, but this one should have been enough to do a job. And like I said, I'm not really too fussed if the shade is slightly off on the yellow, because like I've said before, the network rail shades of yellows are just like, there's quite a few, they're not all the same, so if there's slight variations, I'm not that worried about it. I mean, either way, this HST is going to look a damn sight better than what it did when I first received it, to be honest. So, and it's just giving it a new purpose and giving it a major overhaul to give it a new purpose and a new lease of life, so it can run on the layout for a long time yet, and bring this old HST, Lima HST, back to life. So like I said, it was these Wilko's these Wilko's gloss paints that I bought, the yellow and the black. But like I said, any will really do. I was using a Tamiya one, and I can't remember the code of that. And like I said, and then there was the primer from Wix's. It's been a few days since I last spoke to you and showed you the HST in its primed state, which is in the white state. Now, since then, I did say in the previous clip that I was using the gloss yellow from Wilko's, but if you haven't done haven't started this project, or you're thinking about doing this project of your own, I'd just scrap that in any case. Because what I did is I managed to actually find the Tamiya paint that I was originally using, which is a much better yellow, which is actually readily available. So if you're going to go along this route of creating your own HST in the Flying Banana livery, then the yellow I've used, and I'll show it to you so you know, and you can decide for yourself whether you want to use it, was this yellow TS47 by Tamiya. And it's a much closer yellow than the other yellow that I was going to use. So I would highly suggest that if you're going to create your own, then basically to go down this route. Also, when I finished it, after I put all the decals on it, I also used this Rail Match satin varnish, and that is basically to seal in all the transfers onto the body, and hopefully they will last a lot longer than if you just don't do anything with them. Now, it is important that I've done this for experience, so I've made the mistake, so I can tell you. It's a lot easier to put the transfers on when the body's actually in a gloss state. If you put it on a matte state, it tends to drag the transfers, and you could end up ruining your transfers, because I've made that mistake myself. Because gloss by nature is just shiny and it's smoother and it will just go across. So if you go onto a nice smooth surface or glossy surface, the transfers will slide a lot easier into the position that you want, and then afterwards you can seal them in with the satin varnish when you're finished. And then, so what I'll do is, and I got the transfers, for those of you, I can't remember if I mentioned it in this video or not, because like I said, it has been a few days. I actually got the transfers from Railtech. So these are Railtech transfers, and as you can see, there are still some transfers here, because actually I've got another locomotive to do. And that's the GB rail freights, because I've got another locomotive to do. And this will tell you this will tell you which one I've got to do. So it's another 73. But in terms of the network rail, you do get some spares, and so I'll show you the spares. So I've got a spare nameplate, and I've got the Improving Your Railway and Your Network Rail, and a few other hazard warning lines and marking lines and stuff like that. So, and also there are some numbers for the HST, the running numbers. So, and I've done quite well out of this. There was a sketchy moment last night where I didn't realise that one of the transfers had actually slightly slipped, and that caused me a bit of anxiety, because I had to try and straighten it out before I sealed it. And I'd already started to seal it on the other side before I realised what had happened, and I had to sort of be careful with it, but I've got away with it, and that could have easily gone so wrong. But you do get a spare set, just in case, for that very reason, in case you do kind of mess it up. Like I said, if you go onto Railtech Transfer's website, you can just basically search for anything you like. There's a search bar on there, so you can put either the class of locomotive you're searching for or the company that you're searching for, and then it will come with a list of all the options that you have for your particular search, and it will cover. It actually covers N gauge, TT, OO, and O gauge. So there are options available if you do want to go and create your own logos and stuff like that. Create your own trains, that you can actually buy the transfers for it. Not necessarily everything, but because there's stuff that I've searched for that I've wanted to do projects in the past, and Railtech transfers don't actually do necessarily all of the transfers. But on this particular occasion, and before I started this project, and before I even bought the HST, I did actually check the Railtech transfers website to make sure that the transfers that I was interested in and that I was after were actually available before making the commitment to buy the HST off of eBay. So that's kind of why it's quite good to do your research beforehand, that if you are thinking of going down this line, just make sure that you've got everything available that you need, so you don't get caught out with like, oh, I can get the transfers but I can't find a suitable donor, HST, or the other way around. And it's usually the other way around, where you can get a HST Lima easy enough. It's just whether you get one at the right price that you want to pay for it, and also whether or not the transfers are available for you to do the project. So that's something to bear in mind. So I'm going to show it to you what I've done. So I'm going to show, actually I'll show you, this is one of the ones that came in a HST train pack. This is the Hornby HST train pack, and this one is 43013, and this is actually the one that's actually running on the rails at the moment. The one that was running on the running clips, which you're about to see, is actually its sister, 43014, but I haven't actually seen that one on the rails for ages, so I don't know if it's been scrapped or whether it's been used as spares or whether it's been refurbished or whatever. But at the moment, out on the rails, it tends to be like, this one tends to be running the 43013 and 62, which I believe was refurbished not that long ago. So this is the one that you get in the Hornby train pack. This one's got sound and lights and everything like that. And this is something else that I've actually sort of learned when I was running my running shots, which you're about to see. Originally, the train pack obviously consists of two of these, and both of these have got sound in it, so there's sound at both ends. But what I've noticed is, because there isn't any sound on my other one that I've just done, and there's no lights or anything like that that I've just done, and I'm still sort of debating what I'm going to do with it in terms of whether I am going to do that. I actually found that, particularly in this flat, that it does become a little bit overpowering having the two power cars running at the same time at both ends. I don't know if it's the acoustics in here or something, but it does seem a bit. So it was actually quite nice that actually when I ran, and you'll probably hear it because the sound is on. You'll hear that there isn't sound at both ends, but to be honest, I actually preferred it because it didn't seem so distorted and it didn't seem so overpowering. So it might very well be that I might take the sound out of this one maybe and put it on the other one and use the other one as a power car and leave this one as just a dummy car with its lights working but no sound. So I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do with that, because I might transfer the sound over. But anyway, that's what you get. Now let me show you, before I put this one down, I'll put this one on top and you can see this sort of colour difference and see what you think. And the colour difference is pretty much there. You know, there isn't much in it, and that was using the Tamiya paint. So let's take a closer look at the at this one that I've created. Now, basically, I think I explained it in one of the earlier clips that the seller wasn't particularly truthful with me, and like I said, I'm sure if I haven't put it in if I haven't put it at the beginning of the video, I'll put it at the end. I'll put the description that the seller actually put on his listing on eBay. So this goes to show you to be really careful on eBay, because I knew it was scratched because you could tell by the pictures, and he did actually make a note of that. But what he didn't actually mention was that the bogey on the back, this one here, was actually different. It wasn't the correct bogey. He'd swapped it out, or somebody had swapped it out. Also, this at the back, I don't know if these are sort of air tanks or something, or some sort of tanks at the back, they were missing off of that. But fortunately, because I had the old project HST that I showed you previously with a Great Western, I basically could actually create one great chassis between the two. And so this actual chassis is actually the chassis off the other one rather than off this one, because basically the rear bogey was the proper one as opposed to the other one. And I didn't actually test run the other one because I wasn't sure whether or not it was going to derail, plus it was complete. So I just swapped the chassis out. I mean, it still fits on the other one, and it doesn't matter that the other one's actually got parts missing because it's actually a static display and it's supposed to be damaged and derelict. As you can see, the windows at the front didn't come out that great, and that's purely because when I got it, it was already kind of like this, and unfortunately, I've been able to pop these out before, but on this particular one, they glued it in, and because they glued it in, I couldn't actually take it out without risking damaging the body or damaging the glazing. So I just elected just to leave it like that and just, look, that's just how it is. And he didn't really say anything about that. So he didn't say that, and he didn't turn around and say that the bogey was not the right bogey. He didn't say that this was missing. And I've managed to sort out the scratch on the front and the damage on the front. You can still sort of notice a slight crack on it, but to be honest, you're not really going to notice it when it's running around. And in all honesty, I think I've done a pretty good job of it, pretty good fist of it. Now, you've got the cant rail strips on the top. Now, those are separate, but I created my own, and I'll tell you how I did that. Now, I did order some cant rail striping from Railtech ages ago, and it's this really fine, long orange strip, and it was an absolute nightmare to fit on anything. It literally just, because it was so long and thin, you had no real control over it, and I ended up just binning it because it just kept getting tangled and wrapped up. Now, what I found with this is what I've done previously. Now, I have to say a special thank you, and that special thank you goes to John Warner over at Piccadilly Model Railway, and the reason why I say that is because many years ago, I had a bit of a dilemma with my Behringer layout, and I was doing Dover Marine, and I was doing this kind of like trying to create this semicircle kind of glazing, and I was trying to put the glazing panels in, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. And he suggested using thin strips of self-adhesive paper to create the window frames, and then you could just line them up and line them up and line them up, and then you'd eventually get the panels for your windows. And that idea has actually stayed with me ever since. So I found ways of using that technique. And what I did with the cant rail is, if you see, this is Sainsbury's labels, home labels, and these are the sort of labels that you get. Like, for example, if you send stuff abroad or something like that, or you sell stuff on eBay or whatever, and you have these kind of labels where you put the address on it and you peel it off, and you write the address, peel it off and stick it on. But what I've done is, because obviously if you're not very good at cutting straight lines, what I've done in the past is like just pre-painted these sticky self-adhesive labels in the colours that I want, and then all you do is you just get a pair of scissors and you just cut a thin sliver, and then you get your cant rail that way. So that way you don't have to sort of go, like if you haven't got a steady hand, for example, and you're not very good at painting, you haven't got a very steady hand, you can actually sort of paint it on these sticky label strips separately, and it doesn't matter if you mess it up and get it over the next one or whatever, because it's only just a cheap sticky label strip. And then you just take your pair of scissors and just cut a thin strip off of it, and then you can use it as a sticky label cant rail strip. And then what I did then is, like I said, once everything was done on the actual locomotive, I basically sealed it in with the satin varnish and left it to dry. And I think for an old Lima, I think it's come out pretty damn good, to be honest. I'm really pleased with it. And like I said, you'll see some running shots now, and you can make your own judgment on it and see how close it looks to the rest of the consist. So until the next time, my name's Susanna, and I live with chains, and I hope you enjoyed this video. So bye for now. Bye bye.